Good morning, good day, good evening. From whatever part of the world that you are joining us, Brett and I are certainly glad that you are here for our McElroy Equipment Inspection Program session. Today, we are going to highlight the needs that drove McElroy's development of this program, hit the high points of the application itself, and then Brett will detail the 5 easy steps that our channel partners can use as they get started on their own equipment inspection journey. Finally, we will conclude with an interview with the City of Springfield, Missouri, and industrial sales who will be sharing lessons learned on their journey of an equipment inspection program and how it has brought value to both the end user and to the channel partner. As a manufacturer with more than 50 years of experience making fusion machines, McElroy knows that well-maintained equipment in conjunction with a qualified operator is the very best way to assure a quality piping system. And from our very beginnings, McElroy has shared with our end users and our distributors, channel partners, those things that need to be inspected in order to make sure a machine is operating properly. Several years ago, we created the McElroy Equipment Inspection Program in order to help our equipment owners track their inspection efforts at the machine level. Certainly over time, municipalities, states, and federal governments have begun requiring not only that the inspections be done, but that they be recorded and be available for review. So in the next couple of minutes, we're going to talk about one of those rules that has happened in the United States, but for our international customers and international viewers, please know that these rules are not limited to just the United States. We see this happening really around the world. This one's just a good example for our session today. So one of the regulations that certainly is playing a larger role right now, at least in the United States for equipment inspections, is the equipment inspection rule that is part of 49 CFR. And how it ended up there is a story that we should share. So in 2011, Congress passed its Protecting Our Infrastructure of Pipelines Enhancing Safety Act. And through that legislation, Congress directed the Department of Transportation and the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration to review its rules around gas distribution and gas transmission, especially in light of plastic pipes. So PHMSA took that legislation and its own experience and drafted proposed rules in 2015. Importantly, Congress did not speak to the question of equipment maintenance. Congress did not speak to equipment maintenance specifically within the legislation, but PHMSA, in proposing the rules, said that, quote, due to the difficulty in assessing the quality of field joints, it is very important for operators to use properly calibrated and maintained equipment. So PHMSA thought that they had a gap in their own rules. They proposed these rules in May of 2015 that were very prescriptive. They spoke to exactly what pieces of equipment, spoke to what inspections needed to be done, and that those records should be maintained for the life of the pipeline. That was the proposal in 2015. In the US, when a rule is proposed, it goes through significant public comment, and this one is no different. Industry groups, environmental groups, and importantly, the agency's own advisory council provided comments and recommendations back to PHMSA on how it could improve the proposed rules. And out of that comment period, the final rule was published in November of 2019 and became effective the beginning of this year. And in that rule, PHMSA pulled much of the prescriptive requirements, but left the general statement requiring equipment inspection maintenance to occur and to be maintained. So when they explained their decision in their final rule, PHMSA did state that their own advisory council had determined and had recommended a more generalized statement, but that it would continue to revisit this question in the future, which leaves for those of us who work in gas distribution and gas transmission here in the US, it gives us a little window into what PHMSA is expecting and where really their heart is with regard to equipment inspections. So what remained in the rule, and what are we subject to here in the US if you are in gas distribution, gas transmission, and for those of you in gas gathering, be careful because some of the PHMSA rules are extending even into your industry space. So this is what is left. Maintain equipment used in joining plastic pipe in accordance with manufacturer recommended practice or written procedures that have been proven by test and experience to produce acceptable joints. So again, this is just one example of a regulation or a code or a project contract that might require equipment to be well maintained. So what equipment are we talking about? Of course, our minds often go to our carriages and to our vehicles because that is what we typically think of as joining plastic pipe. But don't forget there's other pieces of equipment at your job site that are equally important to joining plastic pipe. Don't forget your heaters and your facers and your data loggers. If you're using electrofusion equipment, this rule applies to that equipment as well. So as you're thinking about an equipment inspection program for your company or to implement as a channel partner, it's not just carriages and vehicles that we're talking about. So how would you implement an equipment inspection program? Well, of course, under the federal rule and under most project contracts, you can go build your own. There's nothing that says you have to use McElroys. If you use the manufacturers, you have maybe less of a barrier or less of a threshold of demonstrating why you have included things on an inspection checklist, but you can build your own system and somehow maintain that forever, either on Excel spreadsheets or in 3-ring binders. That's absolutely an option under most contracts and rules and regulations. For ease, and one of the reasons McElroy created it was to hopefully make it easier for our customers and for our channel partners to maintain the information that is needed in order to meet those requirements of those evolving rules and in order to assure ultimately that what goes to the field is in good operating condition. Use what is already available from McElroy. Our system is a fully developed system for machine inspections and for machine inspectors, project owners, equipment owners, and for project inspectors. For the machine inspector, the inspection app is loaded directly into the data logger. So the inspector can complete all of his or her inspections using that data logger to log the information. There's no double entry, there's no lost paper, there's no worry about transposing a number. It's all immediately created, saved, stored directly into the vault where it's available to project owners or to inspectors via the web download. And you see a picture of that here on the screen. So if an inspector or a project owner has the serial number of the equipment being used, a simple web app lets them key in that serial number and it returns some limited information on the inspection status of that equipment. And finally, you see a little sticker here. For our machine inspectors, when they're doing the work on machines, heaters, facers, McElroy provides these stickers. And that is an immediate clue to anybody working on the job site of what the inspection history and current status of a piece of equipment would be. So those 3 things, in the field, on the web, in the vault, allows that inspection record to be created, maintained, and communicated. Next, Brett's going to take us through the 5 easy steps of getting started in the McElroy Equipment Inspection Program. Brett, it's all yours.
Hey, thank you, Deanne, and welcome everybody. So let's talk the 5 easy steps to equipment inspection. You know, a lot of the conversations that we have from the field are, Brett, we want to get involved with equipment inspection. We just don't know how. So in looking at this process, we've developed the 5 easy steps. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So step 1, identifying your team. Now this could be an individual or a group like you see in front of you, but let these folks know that they are your inspectors and they're representing your organization. Now another question we get is how technical do these people need to be? And I've seen it work both ways, but your inspectors don't have to be highly technical to do equipment inspection. In fact, Salespeople or operational people with some technical understanding make a great inspector out there for you. And skill set. The day of the inspections could be somewhat chaotic. You've got all this equipment coming in. So you want people that have good organizational skills, are problem solvers, and are good with people. You do that, you've got a great team. So step 2, what to do next? Simply contact McElroy. Give me a call, send me an email, contact Deanne, Paul Brodsky, Mike Pacheco. Give us a call or send us an email. Let us know that you're going to get in the inspection game. What we're going to do next is send to you an application. It takes about 10 minutes. Complete it. Once you've completed it, send it back, and we're going to assign to you an inspector ID number. Now, this number you'll be using every time you log in and doing an inspection on the app, on the data logger. So the number is important also for tracking and traceability. And we just want to know who's out there doing those inspections. The next step is we'll send you a link that will connect you to the Google Play Store. So this is an Android device, and the app lives on the Google Play Store. Not everybody can find it, so we have to send you this link where you can download that app, and we'll be happy to assist you with that as well. So another question we get quite often is, how do we price this? Now, my background came from operations in the lift truck industry, and a lot of that was developing pricing models for service around planned maintenance. And that's a big part of lift truck. And I equate that service model a lot to what we're doing here with equipment inspection. You're providing a tremendous service to your customers. So focus on that service. You're taking a team of people out, you're taking that equipment, you're bringing it up to a different level or a different standard by being able to do that maintenance right there in the shop. So focus on that service capability and charge for that service appropriately. And also, time is money. Your time is out there. Now, these inspections might be one day, it might be 3 days, it might be 1 week, it might be over a different period from 1 month to the next. So remember, that time is money for you as well. And also added value. I look at this as a tremendous opportunity to add value to your operation as well. Why not take a 28 machine, a brand new one in, and compare it with the customer? You've got a captive customer right there. Compare a 28 machine with the older 28 machine, or even highlight the data logger that you're utilizing to be able to do those inspections. So that's added value for the pricing model as well. So step 4 is very important. I think it's actually one of the bigger and most important steps in the process. I like to use this quote from Abraham Lincoln that says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'm going to spend the first 4 sharpening my axe." Plan, you cannot overplan to make equipment inspection successful for you. So about a week ahead of time, why not reach out to your customer and ask for that equipment list? If you can get that equipment list ahead of time, you're going to know the age of the equipment. You can go out, order those parts and components that you're going to need. You're going to have all that preparation ready to go the day of the inspection. And you're going to know the ages of that equipment way ahead of time. You're going to know ahead of time what you should be prepared for as well. Also, why not make a site visit? Now, the inspections that I've seen that have been very successful in terms of when there's a lot of equipment involved, a pre-site visit has been always included. And as part of that pre-site visit, it's laying out what the property looks like, where we're going to put our facers, where we're going to put our heaters, all the components that are going to be involved. Also important is where you're going to utilize your staff, because remember, you're going to have some staff that's going to be repairing that equipment that day. You're also going to have other staff that day that will be just doing the inspections. So know where you're going to be putting that equipment, your staff, and that's all part of the preparation that you've done way ahead of time. And then the big day, all that preparation is going to show up that big day when you show up. You've come with the proper tools, the proper parts, the parts list. You're ready to do those inspections. Now communicate that to your customer as well, so they've seen that planning and preparation, and now you're ready to perform. So again, make sure you're sharpening that axe for those 4 hours. And step 5 is closing the loop. Again, I think all the steps are really important, but I really think this one's important too. And I think this one could be overlooked at times. And what I mean by closing the loop is there will be some equipment that did not complete the final inspection. Those records weren't uploaded in the vault because they needed additional components that you had to go back and order from your shop. So make sure you return and complete that final work, and then you're able to upload those final inspections. You can put the sticker on those components, and those components are finally complete. The inspection's done. So you close that loop for your customer as well, and now you know their entire fleet is up to speed. So make sure you complete that process. Now knowledge is power. You've got this list of what the equipment that your customer has. So now you can start planning and preparing for your next inspection. When's that going to be? You can also start talking about replacement cycles with your customer. If they've got a list of older equipment, you can start having those conversations with them about replacement cycles for that older equipment and getting it out of their system and replacing it with that new that you happen to bring in as well. So that knowledge is tremendous power. And now you're in a rhythm. You've built the clarity, the consistency with your customer. You know, it might be an inspection this month. You might have another one planned for the next month as well. But now you're developing that rhythm with your customer. And congratulations, you're a service-based customer now, or a company now, and you're ready to continue on with the inspection game. So those are the 5 easy steps to getting involved with equipment inspection. Now, Deanna and I had the opportunity to go out and interview Jacob Nakano with Springfield Utilities, and also Jim Hayes and Chris Habiger with Industrial Sales in Kansas City. They've formed a partnership and have been doing inspection now for, I think, a couple different times. And we were able to interview them and talk them through the success of their program as well. So we're going to kick it over now and show you what that interview looked like. All right, everybody, welcome today. So I'm Brett Stone, Sales Channel Manager here at McElroy Manufacturing, and I'm joined today by Deanne Hughes, also of McElroy Manufacturing. Hey, Deanne.
Hi, guys.
So we've been talking today a lot about equipment inspection, and I'm happy today to be joined by Jim Hayes, Chris Habiger, and Jacob Nakano. Jim Hayes is an outside sales specialist with industrial sales there in Olathe, Kansas. Chris Habiger is a McElroy master mechanic and also one of the key technical folks there also at industrial sales there in Olathe, Kansas. And then Jacob Nakano is our engineering design specialist with City Utilities in Springfield, Missouri. So welcome, everybody. Glad you guys could join us today.
Oh, glad to be here.
All right. So Deanna and I will kick this off. We know you all have had a lot of success on both sides, industrial sales and in City Utilities with equipment inspection. And we've got a few questions here we'd like to run by you guys. So Deanne, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So just to kind of give everybody in our audience a little window into your equipment inspection life, tell us a little bit about your most recent equipment inspection activities.
So our equipment inspections, we started in 2019, and we kind of piggybacked the equipment inspections with our contractor operator qualification training for fusion, plastic pipe fusions. And we partnered up with industrial sales and brought them into Springfield and had them look at all of our contractor equipment prior to them making fusions. And through that, we evolved to this year doing it once again, but we better streamline that approach because we found out a lot of stuff that first year of, you know, how to make it better.
So for instance, when you brought your contractors in, had you been bringing them in before, you just hadn't been looking at their equipment in the past?
It was, we would look at their equipment, but it was us here at City Utilities looking at the equipment. Okay. And we looked at, you know, how the rulings from PHMSA are coming down. It's like, we're not experts on maintaining this equipment, so why don't we bring the experts in? And that's where we're fortunate with industrial sales, having master mechanics who are properly trained to look at this equipment.
So then, Chris, when you got to the equipment inspection in 2019, what did you find? What did you learn?
That was a learning experience. Jacob and I had planned, you know, maybe 6 to 8 weeks leading up to that. And one hiccup we had was Jacob was had an emergency, and I found out the night before the inspections were to begin. So
So
on
you
day
had to
one,
do solo.
yeah. So on that morning, you know, we did the best we could as we had planned, and his guys, you know, conducted the qualification part of it. But they were hectic days. We had quite a few contractors coming in and quite a few pieces of equipment.
Hey, Chris, as part of that planning, you said you planned 6 weeks up to that event. And I talked about planning a little bit in preparation. And all of a sudden, the day before, things switch. If you had not had that planning, would it have gone smoothly? What would have happened?
I get anxious just thinking about that if we had zero plan. Jim was with me on that trip, and he was able to assist probably more than we had planned, but he was able to do kind of crowd control, help me check in the equipment, and do some initial visual inspection. So from there, I had to get everything repaired and up to spec in order for the guys to qualify on those machines that afternoon.
Wow.
So if I understand correctly, the contractors came in the morning, they brought their equipment, you checked it in, Jacob's team took them to another place to do their operator qualification, learning session, and to have lunch. They might have a break to come visit with you about what you're finding on their machines. And then by after lunch, when they're actually ready to do their qualifications, you've made their equipment such that it is in good working order and for Jacob's team to assess. Is that about what the schedule looked like?
Yes, and luckily, most of the equipment, the majority of it was small diameter machines, and that I've had some experience with. So, you know, it wasn't like they were bringing in medium diameter machines with unexpected issues. It was really just kind of the wearable parts, you know, butt plates, power cords, you know, stripper bars, safety labels.
Okay.
Hey, Jim, what was your part of the process?
So as Chris mentioned, with Jacob being out, we didn't know, we had an idea, obviously, to get a catalog list of everyone's equipment that they were bringing in. He did a pretty good job, I would say, all in all, getting us a good base of what was going to be there. Now, you know, there was some other items that showed up, but so yeah, I basically just kind of ran interference when they arrived with their equipment, you know, labeled who it belonged to. Like I said, looked it over, make sure, maybe plug cords in, get stuff up to temperature so that Chris could, you know, without having to wait and slow down, you know, going through the equipment. So yeah, just run interference, answer some questions from these guys. I kind of, with Jacob not being there, I basically gave like a kind of a lead into what we were looking at, you know, that we were there to help them. We weren't there to try to, you know, take advantage or you know, we weren't there to sell. We were there to assist in making sure that, you know, what we were there was to work with them to get their equipment up to standard for city utilities so that they could be more productive on a job site.
Perfect.
So Jacob, what kind of differences have you seen both in the work that your contractors are doing and in the projects that you're running in the city of Springfield as a result of having this equipment inspection program happening once a year?
We know that, you know, our contractors have good equipment now. They've always had the equipment, but how it's been maintained, at least we have that comfort of knowing that it properly gets looked at every year by a professional, and they have the sticker on there saying it has been looked at. And then we have the record keeping aspect of it where we can go pull it up via the website that it was inspected and passed. And it just helps us with kind of our paperwork side of it that we have to maintain here, that we know that we can get to that stuff easily.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, Jim, were you a little surprised about how much equipment showed up that day?
Yeah, well, I think we were at the, I think we were at the power, I think we were at the power facility at that first year, and you know, you had regular city and utility employees, you know, going to and from with their daily work, and lots of contractors and parking, and the space that we were in. I think it rained that day, if I remember correctly, and you know, so trying to get everybody inside the building, you know, backed up to the doors to get everything out. Yeah, there was a lot of equipment. I mean, there was just a lot, and not only with McElroy equipment, processors, and cut off tools or peelers, that sort of thing. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff there, and the very first year, you know, the class sizes were a lot larger as opposed to the second. So yeah, there was a lot.
So you made some changes then, Jacob, in how you scheduled it from 2019 to 2020?
Yes. So in 19, we did what we did in the past was 1 week. We would take out and schedule our contractors, invite them to class, and we generally ran about 100 people through in those 5 days, between roughly about 12 to 15 contractors that week. In 20, based off of what we discovered in 19 with the inspections, and we see new people every year, so we're starting to see more and more. So we decided to take 2 weeks and split that up, give us more time, so the contractor knows what they're doing, these new people get a better understanding, plus allow industrial sales to get a really good look and not feel pressed for time during the equipment inspections in the morning.
Yeah. When you talk about new people, is it new companies coming to work for City of Springfield, or just that you're seeing new workers for companies you've worked with in the past?
New employees for companies that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
So
Nice.
every year we see new people, and rather than them get the field training, they understand, they've been kind of out in the field knowing what goes on, but get to the proper qualification, proper training. A lot of stuff I teach in class is what I learned down at McElroy's training in Tulsa. So I kind of relay a lot of that information with other stuff that's pertinent to our utility in our class. So that way they get they learn the right stuff, and we don't have to unteach bad habits.
And you know that you're doing it on equipment that's in good repair. So Chris and Jim, as you look at other equipment inspection projects, how has this one been different than the other ones you've done?
I would say,
I mean, for me, go ahead, Jim.
I would say, obviously at the larger scale with the way that City Utilities is making their contractors become accountable, I think just the sheer volume. We've had some success with some other contractors doing work outside of Springfield that they have to follow the PHMSA guidelines as well. Having a background starting this with City Utilities has helped us get a better grasp on what items we need, what to look for, the checklist. I think it's just been a really good background for us and a base to work off of. And one thing to kind of go along with what Jacob had said, making sure that guys are bringing in their train correctly. The accountability from 1 year to the next, and Chris can probably tell you more about it since I wasn't as much a part this year, was that, seeing that people are taking care of their machines now more so than the first time they came in after not really having, the guidelines that what we were, inspecting the equipment on. So I would say he could probably attest to the fact that it saved a lot of time, and maybe the equipment that showed up was, better maintained or better taken care of from the previous trip.
It's an interesting.
This year's inspection, and having the benefit, being able to repair and inspect the same machines from the previous year, I noticed improvement in the overall condition of most of the machines. And I'd have to say that's what a successful program looks like. That's the result.
Definitely. Yeah, you guys use the app, the equipment inspection app through the process?
Yep, 100%. It's a great app, great interface through the Data Logger 6.
Very good. How, after all that equipment, there's a lot of parts and pieces, I'm sure, that you replaced that day. How did you prepare knowing what you needed to bring with you for that day?
So just a good estimate, you know, Jacob provided a pretty good list of the equipment from the inspectors. So, you know, I could gauge how many power cords I needed, all of those small diameter items. And I can pack quite a few of those into our mobile service van. And like I said, there was a few, probably 3 or 4 track stars that we looked at, and we were able to repair and inspect and pass inspection on all but one of those. And I was able to get the parts shipped from our location in Olathe, Kansas, and have that machine pass inspection at the end of the day Friday before I left town.
Right.
Back to your comment earlier, Brett, about it being about service.
Definitely. Great job. Anything you will do differently this next year?
No COVID.
Well, we were lucky this year and got done like 2 weeks before everything went crazy with COVID. So we were very fortunate to get our timing this year worked out good.
So are you thinking about your 2021 plan then, Jacob?
I'm starting to, because with all the COVID, you know, what rulings that has happened here with, you know, bringing so many people into the facility, I'm starting to have to think about how we schedule that. So, you know, in the next few months, I'm going to have to really sit down and figure out, you know, what's our max class size? You know, are we going to keep the 2 weeks, or are we going to have to stretch it out even further, you know, due to all these pandemic issues we have?
Right. So what question, Jim, should we have asked you today that we didn't ask?
How do we get more people in city utilities position to, you know, kind of implement this process, to make contractors and you know, workers perform the equipment inspections, and how do we get everybody on board? You know, how do we make this thing work across the board, not only with gas, water as well, you know, wastewater. I think it's a great program that we need to try to, we need more backing. We need to find out how we can make that more universal, you know, across the board for our customers. I mean, you know, like I said, it's service. You don't want to take a machine out and have issues on a job site, or take it out to you know, a contractor take a piece of equipment out to, say, city utilities, and their inspector looks at it and goes, yeah, I don't think that's going to pass, you know. And then you got guys that are sitting around with equipment and on a job site that can't perform the work. So
yeah, so how do we continue to build the momentum behind a robust equipment inspection program?
I think, you know, McElroy will have a huge part to play in that. You know, obviously they've kind of set the guidelines forth in the data logger as far as what items to look for. How do we get that to people? INFUSION, I think, will be a great, you know, platform for a lot of people to see and kind of hear maybe what the story is, and we make the narrative, you know, to try to implement this. You know, like I said, I've got some contractors that are doing some work that, you know, accountability. How do you get guys to want to do it? Well, you don't want to see a failure. You know, a failure is obviously the worst kind of, you know, the worst kind of case scenario for going out. Is my equipment not quite up to, you know, up to standard? So, like I said, INFUSION, you know, myself as, you know, being a Missouri rep, you know, getting that out there to my people, and just keep plugging away, you know.
Right. Yeah. Jacob or Chris, other thoughts?
You should ask me what makes the inspection program work best.
What makes the equipment inspection program work best?
It's when all parties are committed to excellence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And on
And
that
that's true
note,
of your contractors too, right? That even the people
yes.
who are bringing their equipment that have to pass, they have to be committed to that too. How did you communicate the needed repairs then to your contractors when they came?
I think their history of working with city utilities was probably the best indicator of what they should expect. From what I've seen, city utilities of Springfield is committed to doing the best work possible with the best trained people, and by default, that would require the best maintained equipment. So, and that's where industrial sales and McElroy will meet that need. So
I like your thing of it's a really 360s of people dedicated to doing to excellence.
yeah.
Yeah.
And from my time through the repair to the inspection, a large part of that's just education. And so, oftentimes I'm working on something in the shop and no one's around, but where you can interface with these guys and, have the time to explain to them, this is why we do this. This is the function of this part of the machine.
Stripper bars, is that what you're referring to?
They're all necessary.
There's a reason for these.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right.
Very good.
Jacob, what do you think?
We started down this equipment inspection thing. It wasn't a mandatory requirement that, hey, all you contractors that want to do work for us, you have to use industrial sales. But all of our contractors went through with it, why we had industrial sales on site. So it's been a good partnership, between us at city utilities, our contractors, and even industrial sales. Because we're also able to get our own equipment here at city utilities because we maintain a fleet too to be looked at, and we have the same little things, wear items and everything that we don't have a master mechanic on site. We rely on our partnership with the distributors. So
yeah.
It's like a win-win-win for everybody.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And we know we're putting a good system in the ground when the projects happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we want is, good quality work being done in the field the first time. We don't want to have to go back and fix anything.
Right.
Yep. Well, great work, everybody. Deanne, any final comments?
Guys, I so appreciate your time today. Brett and I have been so impressed with the work that city and industrial sales have done together and the difference that it's making, as Jacob said, in the field. So we appreciate your time and we look forward to seeing you at Infusion.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So we've got a few questions, Shannon?
We do. So starting out, the first one that I've got for you guys is, this one has to do with CMR program, kind of. So the way it's worded is, so the CMR has a checklist to inspect machines when they're returned. So would this program be a replacement for the CMR program?
I can answer that one. No, actually not. It's a separate program from CMR. CMR was designed specifically for rental, and we've had that question before, in regards to would this adapt to rental to CMR, but this is specifically to deal with the PHMSA ruling that Deanne outlined, and specifically for equipment inspection. It's a little different. If you look at the questions that are asked in equipment inspection, there's some different questions in there versus what we ask in terms of CMR. So we are looking, I will say, long term, is there some similarities as to where these programs go and how they might be able to blend with one another. But right now, they're two completely separate programs.
And maybe we should explain that CMR stands for Certified McElroy Rental.
Yep. Thank you, Deanne.
And for the companies that are currently using the equipment inspection program, so these are the folks that are having their equipment come out and get inspected, are they noticing a decrease in loss of time for doing the machines being down?
Yeah, definitely. Chris, Jim, you guys want to weigh in on that one?
Did you guys hear the question?
Yeah, I think as I understand it, I haven't had anyone actually voice that, but I think that just goes along with, taking care of your equipment so it operates at its best at all times without any issues popping up, in the middle of a project.
You guys have been doing a bunch of inspections. When it comes to inspections, on an average, can you kind of tell us, maybe by machine class, how long it takes to do an inspection?
I guess probably it works out to maybe half an hour for a small diameter package that's in relatively good shape. As we were discussing earlier, we would go out and do the repairs that were necessary in order to get that to pass an inspection. So, whatever that would entail would add to that, that 30-minute time frame.
Sure. So if you have a machine that's absolutely perfect, you're probably looking at 30 minutes or less. But if you have
Or
problems,
less.
you go,
Yeah, 30 minutes or less.
okay. Very good. And as far as inspecting the machines themselves, what is required? What is there a qualification? What does a person need to go out and inspect equipment?
So we outlined that a little bit in terms of the 5 easy steps. There's simply an application process to be an inspector, and we can complete or send that application to you. Just simply contact myself, Deanne, Paul Brodsky, Mike Pacheco, and we'll be glad to send you the application. Fill that out. It's about 10 minutes to complete. Send that back to us, and then we will assign you an inspector number that you will use going forward on each inspection. And that's simply for tracking and traceability purposes. But there's really nothing else required in that. We leave that up to the channel partners to be able to decide who they would like to have as their inspectors.
Okay. I've got one about the stickers. And so it's kind of two parts here. So I'm going to ask the first part. Does the sticker act as an asset number, and can that be identified by the customer?
Do you want to take that one, Brett?
You want that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Never had it asked that way, where the sticker would be used as the asset number. Typically, from what I've seen, is there's a separate asset number that's been assigned already to that piece of equipment. If it's new and they stickerize it, at that point, they might go ahead and use it as that asset number. But I think typically that unit, that facer, that heater, that carriage, whatever that might be, has already been assigned an asset number before. It's even long before it's been inspected. Chris
and Jim, I would wonder if they're seeing the sticker used as an asset number or a tracking number, and do you replace those stickers every year so that number might change?
Yeah, so the number would change annually. On the app, on the data logger, there is, I believe, a field to put in the customer's asset number if it already exists on that piece of equipment.
And they get replaced each and every time?
Yep, new sticker, new number with each inspection.
All right. This is one that goes out to any of the companies that are participating in the inspection program. So the folks that are going out and actually doing the inspections, do they seem to be carrying more parts because of this? That way they've got them on hand when they go out to do an inspection.
So I think Shannon, to make sure I understand your question, you're wondering whether the channel partners that are doing equipment inspections are finding that they're purchasing or going through more service parts because they're doing these inspections. Is that the right question?
More of the question, what I'm trying to ask is if I'm a customer and I have somebody come out to do an inspection, typically is there enough parts available in the van or at the shop wherever it's being done, so that if I do have problems, am I going to have to wait to get those parts in, or is that something that's generally stocked?
If you're a good channel partner, you should have plenty of parts on your shelves. And, especially on your van, I mean, it doesn't really do you any good to go out and perform an inspection if you don't have the items to fix it in order to complete the inspection. So, it would behoove you to have things that your standards, items you would think that you'd want to have on hand, perform the inspection, and then pass the equipment after fixing any wear items or things that need to be fixed on it.
Right. Yeah, and we touch on that a little bit, Deanna and I do, in terms of this, the preparation, reaching out ahead of time to your customer, asking them for that list of equipment that's going to be inspected. That way, what you're going to inspect ahead of time. You can reach out to us, order those parts that you feel like you're going to need, and then that way you're prepared once you step in the door.
And the next question is just a perfect segue into that is how do you determine what parts you need to stock and what parts you need to take? I mean, sure, you may have 2014s or 228s or whatever the case may be, but how do you really sit down and decide what it is you need to take?
Can I take a little bit of that first before Chris jumps in on that? So I guess here would be my only concern would be if you have an inspection, number and you're an inspector, obviously you need to have a good working knowledge of what equipment you're working on in order to assess a machine correctly. I think that's where it's a benefit to your customer and the guys performing the work to know the equipment inside and out. And Chris happens to be the guy that he's a master mechanic. So I'll stop talking now. He can kind of give you a better rundown on that question probably.
I think you just, plan for the worst. If you're going to go inspect 16 1.4 packages, there's a possibility that you're going to have to replace 16 sets of butt plates, 16 power cords, or like we talked about, the stripper bars. They seem to fall off these machines and disappear. But you just have to, I guess, maybe have just a little bit of experience with the equipment ahead of time. I'm sure that I've gone to inspections with twice as much parts that or more than I needed, but I didn't have to postpone any inspections because of the repair parts not being readily available.
All right. Another question that I've got for Deanne is, so early on in the presentation, you talked about 49 CFR. So if a person wants to really dive in and read the document themselves, how would they go about finding that?
That is a great question. So in the US, all of our codes are available electronically, and you can just Google 49 ECFR 192 and it will pull the entire document. I would not suggest printing it, but I do suggest it as great reading before bed.
Absolutely. And if you would, repeat those numbers one more time for us.
You bet. So just Google 49 ECFR for Electronic Code of Federal Regulation. So E like elephant, C like cat, F like Frank, R like regulation, 192. And that's where all of the regulations around this equipment inspection, as well as for distribution, transmission, and even now reaching more into gas gathering as well.
All right. Well, we got just a little bit later start than we thought we would. We are getting close to our end time. What I would like is if anybody has any additional comments that they would like to make before we wrap things up, please go ahead now. Chris, Jim, Deanne, Brett, anybody have any additional remarks they'd like to make?
Well, I'll wrap up. I just want to thank Chris and Jim and Jacob Nakano, who was not able to make it on today. You guys were a huge help to Deanna and I's presentation today, and we want to thank you for your time and attention to this. And we know your schedules are busy. You guys got a lot going on out there. So again, thank you very much from our side.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right. I think that's all we have for today, Brett.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. And we want to
Thanks,
thank you
guys.
for being on.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.